So, because I feel like this is a maybe not universal, but thing I've like heard of or known people or whatever in multiple cases. Did you during your either college years or like early 20s when you were living on your own ever do the thing of like keeping trash on purpose, like as a like a tower of ramen cups, or this is the chair that's made entirely of pizza boxes, or like that, you know what I'm
No,
talking about, where like there's like one
I know
specific
you're
thing
talking
that you
about,
use a lot
but
and you're just like, I will like make a little sort of monument or art project like out of this.
no, I mean I kept way too much trash just because I was lazy for me to like be keeping more
Sure.
trash as a hobby. I will say the closest I can think of is when I was a kid, when you and I were both close to the same age.
Hmm.
Um, you because you may have done this as well. Is in 1999. We kept a lot of the Pepsi soda cans
Oh, the
when
episode
they were
one ones.
Star Wars Episode One themed, and they had
Yep.
different characters on them.
Yes, we did also
Now,
have.
we would keep them after we had I think the true collectors would they would have unopened cans of
Oh no,
everything,
yeah,
but we were
yeah.
like, no, we're drinking that stuff, and
Right.
we just have empty soda cans with like Pepsi One with like naked C-3PO on them.
Right,
Um,
because it was, but that was the thing, because there were different, like each different Pepsi brand had a different kind of range of characters, right? Am I remembering that right? So, like, if you wanted like Sebulba or Newt Gunray, you had to get Mountain Dew, or
Yeah, I'm actually gonna look this up right now because I love thinking about this. That's like the one time in my life where the merchandising has really been it's a nostalgic thing for me, and it's like I know it was just as
yeah,
bad back then, but I was a kid and excited, you know.
right.
Um,
I feel like that's the
uh,
sort of thing. I don't know. It doesn't seem like they do that sort of like tie-in merchandising anymore.
they don't do it in such like an organized way, you know. It's like they still have like
Like episode one,
yeah,
especially, I just remember was like literally everywhere. Like it was like Taco Bell
yeah,
meals and Pepsi product. Which I guess I think possibly it's because at one point like Pepsi Frito Lay just kind of owned everything. So if you
yeah.
had a tie-in with them, you got put everywhere. But yeah, it felt like something like episode one was just everywhere.
I forgot about this one. Do you remember that like they also actually had a rare like kind of a Willy Wonka golden ticket style Yoda one that was a golden can, and if you found the golden can, you would
Oh, I
get
might
money.
not have been
I
aware of
forgot about
that.
this, but
Wow, yeah.
yeah, there were 24 different cans. I'm trying to find what the
Okay,
breakup was because we weren't allowed to drink soda, so only my dad drank it, and my dad was a big diet soda drinker at the time.
okay,
But we would only have Pepsi One in the house, which
okay.
so we would just constantly get. I'm looking at the cans right now. It looks like they were on primarily just Pepsi, Pepsi One, and Mountain Dew. This
Okay.
picture here is not like a. Let's see. I gotta figure this out because I want to know which ones we would have had. Because I think the Pepsi One ones we were not the good ones either. You know, like
Okay.
like so yeah, because there were 8 different guys on Pepsi, there were 8 different guys on Mountain Dew. Oh, there were 4 different guys on Diet Pepsi, and there were 4 different guys on Pepsi One. And we mostly had Pepsi One. Occasionally, we might get a Diet Pepsi in
Okay.
there. So yeah, so
Oh, yeah,
Pepsi.
this
This is
is
great.
pretty
This
bad.
is not what we were just meant to start talking about. I actually wanted you to go back and say your point that you had, but
Yeah, no, no, no,
this
no.
is
This is
like
good. This is good.
okay.
We have to
So
do this now. Yeah.
regular Pepsi had Anakin, Sebulba, Qui-Gon Jinn, Watto, Jabba the Hutt, Senator Palpatine, R2D2, and Darth Sidious on it.
Okay.
So
Like
pretty good
all of
lineup
the
if
main
you're
most of the main characters. Yeah.
most of the main guys. Yeah. Then Mountain Dew has Darth Maul,
Awesome.
Jar Jar, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Captain Panaka, Rune Hako. Rune Hako, really? That's Rune Hako and not Newt Gunray. No, Newt Gunray, they saved him for later. So Rune
Okay.
Hako, Ric Olie, and
Is
a
that
destroyer droid
our
on it.
second Ric Olie mention of the podcast?
Maybe. We have to. I mean, we have to have multiple times said the whole planet is one big city, but
I know we have at least
uh,
once. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, those are
It's
all
Ric Olie
pretty
and Destroyer
awesome,
Droid, like
actually.
pretty good. Like a lot of the cool side characters, like Captain Panaka,
Yeah.
Jar Jar. Obviously, we all
I was
thought
about
that
to
was going
say,
to be
yeah,
like a
like
laugh
as
riot.
kids in 1999, I think we loved Jar Jar.
Yeah, but like Darth Maul, Mace Windu, Destroyer Droid,
Yeah,
Obi Wan
yeah.
Kenobi. I'm happy. Then okay, then drastic drop off. Now I'm actually going to skip down to Pepsi One, which is the one we had most of.
Okay.
So we had Chancellor Valorum and
Oh
C-3PO.
no.
C-3PO, okay. Chancellor Valorum, like one of the most boring ones you could have.
I remember he was on. Maybe I'm just thinking of these because yeah, I feel like he was on a bunch of like the merchandising because my dad
Yeah.
had seen the movie before me, and so I would like go through like kind of these like pictures and like list and everything and like ask him who all these characters were, and I'd be like, "Who's this Chancellor Valorum guy?" And he was just like, "He's just kind of a guy. He kind of sucks."
Well, Captain Valorum, maybe kind of the Captain Phasma of his day, where you're just sort of like, oh, this person must be
Yeah.
important, huh? No, it's just like a stormtrooper, and she's got like silver.
Yeah,
A
this one's
silver
just a
thing,
silver
you know?
and is played by Gwendolyn Christie, but you would never know.
Yeah. But yeah, Chancellor Valorum and C-3PO we have most of. C-3PO, all right, but like not in the movie
Sure.
very much, and doesn't have a lot to do. Yeah, and then the other two for Pepsi One were Newt Gunray and Boss Nass, who now, as like an adult who genuinely does love Star Wars Episode One still, but also likes some of the more problematic aspects of it. Ironically, I
Sure.
do love Newt Gunray and Boss Nass, but like
Yeah.
not like your top tier.
Right, as a
When
kid,
a
you're just
child,
like, yeah,
yeah. Do I sometimes in my normal life say Misa think of Wisa being friends? Yes, I do. I will say another thing that I think about a
Friends.
lot is because of the terrible time we're living in right now. I often see like things on like headlines that are like Trump just did some crazy thing that he's not allowed to do, and then it'll say like, is that legal? And every time that I read that headline, like literally every time I read that headline, I just think,
Read it
is
in New
that
Gunray's.
illegal? Like,
I will make it legal.
it's not as good of a lineup. And then Diet Pepsi, I gotta say though, Diet Pepsi is, well, first of all, like I think Pepsi showing its hand as like a gendering its sodas. So Diet Pepsi, that's where all the ladies go.
Oh no.
Because it's got Queen Amidala, fine. Padme, okay. Shmi Skywalker, maybe the most boring of all of these people in terms of maybe even
Sure.
more than Chancellor Valorum.
Or Rune
and,
Hako.
and a battle droid, like not even like a destroyer droid,
Oh,
just
no.
like a battle droid. Those are the ones. So they really were trying to get you to buy. It's like honestly, they should have put all the good characters on Pepsi
I was saying,
One.
I feel like at
'cause
the
I think Pepsi
time,
One
yeah,
is,
they were probably really pushing Pepsi One, right?
right. Yeah, you got to artificially inflate that. It's like you don't need Sebulba to sell Pepsi, or
Right.
but even like it's
Darth
like Diet
Maul
Pepsi
selling
sells
Mountain
quite
Dew,
well, I
yeah.
think. But I know Diet Coke does. But yeah, it's like stick those guys on like Pepsi One. Like get some. I don't know. Was Pepsi Blue probably wasn't this time period, but like get some Pepsi
Yeah.
Blue going, and
Like Diet
Pepsi
Mountain
Blue, man,
Dew
that
is
stuff
probably,
tasted
I'm
so
sure
bad.
was a thing already.
Yeah, get some of that going, like boost your flavors. But anyway,
Wild Cherry.
yeah, right. So what were you what were you saying though?
Well, just that was
talking about-
what the early scene in this episode where like O'Brien and Bashir are like cleaning up his bachelor pad.
Mhm.
It just gave me that kind of vibe of like the
Sure.
two like 20-year-old guy roommates that are just like, I'm gonna make a White Claw wall or something.
Yeah.
The closest thing I think I ever did was it was a rotation I did in residency at the VA, and I got a bunch of like the Aldi brand Mountain Dew to tie it all back. Mountain Frost or MTN Frost,
Sure.
which was not like with an abbreviation or anything. It was just MTN Frost, but and like would always like have one on my drive in, and so we had our little like workroom with our kind of, and I had a desk in the corner, and so like sort of along like the back wall of my desk, I was keeping like started making a little wall of empty Mountain Dew cans.
Yeah, I don't have the luxury to do that because that's just what my car looks like after
Right. Yeah,
like
yeah.
a couple weeks of me not cleaning it. Except for it's Dr Pepper zero sugar. You know.
Yeah. No, I mean there was definitely like a couple years of residency where I just had like an entire passenger made out of McDonald's bags. So
Uh, well, you know what though, I will say that like I loved this episode. Kind of like very surprised at how much I liked this episode. Um, Especially because I was like, I have no memory of what this episode is because it has maybe the most boring name that an
sure.
episode of Star Trek has ever had. But I was like, I don't know, I don't think that like I'm glad that I'm past this, and I was like, it made me wonder like how old. Like Bashir is not a married man, you know what I mean? Like, but like it made me wonder
Sure.
how old Cole Meany was at this time because I was like, you can clean up after yourself when you're however old Cole Meany looks anyway, you know.
Right. Yeah. Like
Uh,
he's probably 40, right?
he, I assume he's older than me, but I always assume that, and I'm often wrong.
I
He
mean, it's becoming less and less
was
true.
he was 43.
1953. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he was 43.
kind of where I would have pegged it. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, whatever. I think most men
Sure.
have gone through a garbage phase, but I was like,
Right, but usually
you
it's at
know,
half that age. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you could also argue that 43 should be old enough to like make a mature male friendship and not be weird about it. But I guess that's what the episode's about. So
You know, that it's funny though too to think about, and we should start talking about the episode proper soon. But like, we know that like the way they do the dishes, they just put them in the replicator and then they get dematerialized. Like really,
it shouldn't be
like
hard.
it should be really easy to pick up after yourself. Like it's like my house would be spotless if any time that I wanted something gone, I could just basically point at it and
There's
get
just like
incinerated.
yeah, if
Like
there's just like a presumably there's just like a hamper in the corner that just everything can get thrown into, and then when
right.
you want new things, you just tell it like, hey, remember those things I threw in there and you burned up? Use that to make me something new.
Yeah, honestly, I'm thinking about that. This might be the best technology invented by Star Trek that I'm thinking about. It's like
It's not the replicator part, but the recycling part.
no, the de-replication. Yeah, it's like I have like a couple of like old bicycles in my garage that like either my kids are too big for or they have broken. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I got to get rid of these, but I either have to go to the dump or figure out how to like dismantle them and kind of like piecemeal them into the garbage can. And it's like, if I could just like throw them into like a hole and they would just disappear, like that would be so great for me. This is one of those like
Right.
when you get old enough and you watch Home Alone, you realize that the biggest problem wasn't the crime, but like the water damage things. You know that they were like it wasn't the
Sure.
it wasn't the theft, it was the water damage to the houses, but. I know I'm saying that like, oh, Cole Meany is older than me, but I know I sound like 10 million years old right now.
Sure. Sure.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Out of Contreks, the show where two guys who have seen part of Star Trek try to watch all of it in no particular order. I'm Ryan Howard.
And I'm Brady Jungle.
And today we're talking about Accession. That's how you would say that, right? Accession? Which is...
Yeah, I was thinking through this. What does that actually mean?
Let's see what Webster's
I don't think it means what they
dictionary
wanted.
defines.
I think, do they mean succession or like, I don't know.
I mean, I assume it's probably accurate. I think it's...
It's like, I think of it as like accessing something, right? Wouldn't that be what it would mean?
So I think it's supposed to be a double. It's a multiple meaning episode title because it's the act or process by which someone rises to a position of honor or power.
Oh, okay. All right.
But then it's also the act of assenting or agreeing, which I think is also like probably
okay.
meant to kind of like referencing like the journey that Kira goes on in this episode, maybe perhaps. So,
Okay. All right. Criticism withdrawn, I guess.
But yeah, this is season 4, episode 17 of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. It was directed by Les Landau and written by Jane Espenson. And I can't read the Memory Alpha synopsis of this episode because Memory Alpha is down today. But I will read kind of a version of the synopsis on Wikipedia, which is Sisko is given a much appreciated opportunity to relinquish the title of emissary, but soon comes to regret it. A subplot in this episode involves Keiko O'Brien's return to the station after a research expedition to Bajor, and her husband Miles readapting to life with her after her extended absence. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, what do you think of this episode? I was really into this episode. I was kind of surprised by how much I liked this one, but I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I think this one was it was kind of a slow burn. Like at first when it started I was just like, okay, well this feels like it's just going to be kind of a long bo- boring prophet stuff and but yeah, I think it ended up
Because
getting like into
yeah,
some interesting
often
stuff
prophet
and
stuff
like
is not very good.
but yeah, I think it ended up getting into really good like character stuff. I would say this is and I realize I'm saying this already as one of the even with like what we've watched, I would say still more of a major Kira slash Nana Visitor fan than most people. I think I like more and more
Sure.
kind of recognize the flaws with the character, but like I think this is actually a very good episode for her. I think she like I think the like her performance
I
in this
agree.
one struck me
Yeah.
as very good.
Yeah, I liked
So
her quite a bit in this. This is yeah, I don't know. I thought there was like a lot of stuff going on in this that was like interesting and gave a lot of the characters like good stuff to do, but also even like the sitcom stuff from like with Keiko and Miles I thought was very well done, and like Worf is like barely in this episode, but like even like the
he
one
has
scene that he's
the
in like
scene
really
of the
really
episode by far. It's so good.
yeah. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, good episode, and I not one I had really remembered either, but
Hmm.
I that's what I was gonna say is that the last episode we talked about for this show, which we both liked a lot, which was Our Man Bashir, great episode, but like a very goofy episode, and this episode
Right.
is got some goofy stuff in it, but like is like a great kind of like example of like the kind of stuff that all Star Trek, but especially like this show could do, which is just like these interesting kind of like thoughtful character study things that like get into like these interesting uh, philosophical ideas and stuff. And yeah, was really enjoyed this one.
Yeah.
Do you want to take us in?
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, so this episode kind of starts out actually with sort of setting up the O'Brien Bashir stuff, because essentially what they kind of explain is that Keiko has been on Bajor doing like a science study thing for I think they say a year, right? And like obviously she's been back for like short visits during that time.
Yeah, which is sort of like sort of implied later because when she says she's pregnant, I'm like, oh, I thought she was gone the whole time, but I guess
Right.
not.
Yeah, I had the same initial reaction because at first like I was like did I misunderstand or what because yeah, cuz O'Brien or Bashir one of them says like, you've sort of been living on your own for a whole year and clearly like over that time O'Brien and Bashir have been like hanging out and playing and having fun together.
Yeah,
And or O'Brien goes to you can tell this is made in the 90s because you can still do the whole trope of like standing directly at the arrival gate like watching people
yeah.
show up.
I mean, I guess that's probably allowed again in this.
Yeah, it did get me thinking of just like I guess it's nice that like at some point in the future we don't need TSA anymore.
That's the real utopia.
It's right. Yeah, because I was like, especially like of all the like places, like DS9 is kind of the place where you would have it because it's sort of the most like an
Right.
airport, but just got Odo, I guess. So
Yeah.
who can just become the scanner? Yeah, and so Molly and Keiko come and like O'Brien says hi to him, and at first Molly's like, "I've got a baby brother," and O'Brien thinks she's talking about her like Bajoran Chucky doll that she's holding.
Yes, I also thought it looked like Chucky.
It looked just like it's got, and
I was like,
I'm not.
that's Chucky.
Yeah, it's. I think it's got a little like Bajoran nose. I think the hair's not as like crazy, but it's the same like red hair, and it's got the like weird. It's there's something in like the outfit it's wearing that is just very Chucky, and maybe it's because we're like recording this around Halloween season. It's just sort of on everybody's mind. But they find out that actually what they're talking about is that Keiko is pregnant. And then there's this moment which is kind of like comes up I think a couple times. Like at one point I thought this was just going to be what this whole plot was, which is basically that like Keiko is like, well, we did, we talked about it and we decided we were going to try. And O'Brien, the subtext is very much that just like, well, I just said that because I wanted to have sex more, and now
Yeah.
my plan has like backfired in more ways than one.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, because he was like, oh yeah, no, I guess so. I guess you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's essentially what they through the very like kind of PG like subtext dancing around it, or like they did it one time, and then she got pregnant from that. And he was like, well, I would thought it would take more times.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're kind of that's kind of set up for yeah
Yeah.
you kind of think originally there's going to be like that's going to be more of an issue as you were saying, but
Yeah,
really
it
isn't.
ends
It's
up
like
not really
good.
being about like her being pregnant and more. It becomes
Yeah,
more about like his friendship with Julian.
well, and just
Um,
like him getting used to like not being a bachelor again,
yeah,
I will say though that this then it leads to one of the funniest things in the episode. Something that was so funny that I stopped the episode and went upstairs to tell Kim about it before I forgot.
okay. Is it the scene in the bar?
Yeah, you know what I'm. Yeah, you
Yes,
know
I
what
do.
scene it is.
I do. So yeah, so in a later scene, O'Brien and Bashir are kind of talking about it, and like I think Bashir sort of already had heard and is kind of telling people, and there is a decent like joke with Quark too before that, where like Quark is kind of walking by and Bashir's like, "Hey Quark, O'Brien's gonna
Miles is
have a
having a
baby,"
baby.
and
Yeah.
and Quark is just like, "Oh, I thought like for humans that only women could get pregnant." And then they're just like, but then Worf walks in, and I forget who it is that tells him like, "Oh, Worf,
Well, Quark says it.
is it
Yeah.
Quark?" Yeah, it's like Keiko's
Yeah.
having another baby, and Worf just is like,
It's just-
"Now."
now. Yeah. It's so good.
It's just
It's
so
so
great.
funny.
I do think
Yeah.
like I understand kind of the like distance from it, and that they have to explain it better because they go on to sort of like explain why that is funny, but it would have been so much better, I think, if that had just been the whole scene.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I felt the same way where I was like, I get it, but like that's such a good bit.
Uh,
Yeah.
which I guess because we are doing this out of context, by explanation, there's an episode of TNG, and I forget what the circumstances are, but basically like
They're like it's a
when
hostage situation.
is that what it is?
Yeah. They're like trapped in. They're trapped in 10 forward.
Yeah. Keiko goes into labor, and like Worf is sort of the only person there, and so he has to deliver the baby, and is very like uncomfortable about it. And so, yes, so that is what he is panicking about. So then I think O'Brien sort of like explains that to Bashir, and Bashir does a little like, "Oh, well, I'll make sure to bring you in as my assistant, when this next one's delivered." And Worf is just like, "I will be out of
I'll
town."
be far away, visiting
Yes.
my parents. Like he just keeps on like coming up with like more
Yeah.
lies about what he is doing.
Yeah, and it's like Michael
It's
Dorn
really
plays
funny.
plays the whole part like very well. But yeah,
Yeah.
it would have been better if they had just kept it with the first bit, because
Yeah,
it's
it's
so
so
funny.
funny,
I
yeah.
laughed out loud at that one.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. Really, really good. And that's like I think the only part of the episode he's in. I think.
I'm pretty sure it
I think
is.
that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Classic. Like we're paying him, and the episode isn't about like what if there was a black people planet. So he has to be in it.
but yeah, so kind of the main thrust of the episode. So there's a ship that comes through the wormhole, which is actually it's like a little bit of a callback to Explorers, because it's a Bajoran like solar sailor ship, like the one that
Yeah.
Sisko built, from hundreds of years ago. And there's a Bajoran on it, and so they beam him onto the ship or onto the station, and they're talking to him, and he's like, "Yes, I am the emissary," which is the thing that Sisko is, of like the person that the prophets talk to.
Yeah, and also like we've kind of seen earlier in this episode, like Sisko having like this sort of acceptance, but also like ambivalence to.
Yeah, because he gets kind of roped into some like ceremonial duties of the emissary, and it's just like this is like he kind of views it as sort of like I do it, but it's kind of a waste of my time.
It's not even a way. It's like I have to do it. It's part of like my job or whatever. But like it's not. I don't like doing it really, and I feel I don't really believe in the prophets in like a religious sense, and I'm pretty ambivalent
Right.
about it. You know, like
Yeah. So basically, what this guy says is like he kind of quickly figures out like what year is it type of thing, and like that it's he's from what is it like 200 years ago, like
200 years previous. Yeah.
yeah, he had been like flying and got his ship sort of was damaged and he was injured and then got kind of sucked into the wormhole and met the prophets and the prophets like healed him and then he came back out of the wormhole but now it's the future.
The distant future, the year
The
2000.
year 2000. uh,
Is us remembering things today?
yeah, I know, right? So then it's Sisko is the one, right, that kind of like goes back and like looks at the prophecies, and Kira's just like, I've never seen you this interested in this before.
He's like, I don't want to do this. I don't like
Yeah,
doing
he's
this
like,
job. Yeah.
this is a great out for me. Is basically that like this
Yeah.
guy sort of fits the prophecies about the emissary better, um,
Yeah.
because like he actually went into the wormhole first. Like he was the first one to meet the prophets, and like there's this line about basically like the prophets like restoring his life or like giving him his life back because they like saved his life and healed him. So Cisco's like, hey, maybe this guy should be the emissary instead of me, and decides to kind of formally like step down and let this guy, because he's right, like he's a Bajoran, he's like a people already like know who he is because he was a poet, so he's already kind of a like famous like figure. So he's like he would be so much better as the emissary than I would. And then he kind of immediately, and this is something that I think I don't know, it was hard to get a read on if he was doing this like I don't know how to say it, like so essentially what happens is hundreds of years ago when he lived, they say Bajor had an extremely strict like class system where basically like what family you were born into determined what kind of job you had and like what sort of level of society you were at. So people from like a higher class, like everyone from a lower class just accepted that and like that they were better and that kind of thing. And so he and where the way Kira explains it is that like all of that kind of got destroyed by the Cardassian occupation because they just all got turned into slaves or like freedom fighters essentially. And so she's like, my family would have been artists, but like we were soldiers because we were had to fight off the Cardassians. And so this guy essentially thinks that like the way to sort of heal Bajor and like kind of make it so like the occupation never happened is to go back to like this. I forget what they're called.
The Dajaras.
Yeah, these
Dajaras. They're
Dajaras
called.
is like the most important thing to him, and like just and he's saying that like this is like what the prophets have like sent me here to do is to sort of reinstate this system. And because he's the emissary of the prophets, everyone sort of goes along with it. And I don't think Wynn actually appears in this episode, but they like mention her. There's like another Vedic that's kind of being like the voice of
Yeah.
like the sort of
His
organized
name is
religion.
Vedic Porta, who's really good. I like he's only in a
Yeah,
couple scenes, but he must have like done some studying of what's her face of the person who plays because he really is like getting that energy of like just kind of evil
yeah,
evil religious priss, you know.
yeah. Because you can tell that like, and I think what they're going for, because like at one point it seems like this emissary guy has like kind of gone full like villain.
Yeah.
But I think more what they're going for is that like the sort of organized like religious system is kind of using this to institute something that they all wanted to do anyways, like that this guy
Right.
and Wynn were just like, oh yeah, no, we should definitely go back to the Dajaras, um and that's what the prophet said, so we all have to do it.
Yep. Yeah, and like, so like when it comes to like Kira, like her family was like an artist family, you know.
Yeah, and I think she like especially in like the scene with Sisko like plays it the best because it's something that she doesn't want to do this and doesn't think she's good at it.
And in fact is not good at it, you know.
Yeah, there's a couple scenes of like her trying to sculpt and just sort of like getting angry at some clay like sort of wordlessly.
Yeah.
um but yeah, but basically she is like, because her religion is so like important to her, feels like that she doesn't have a choice, that like she kind of has to go along with this thing even if she doesn't like it. And there's this scene between her and Sisko where Sisko's like, I guess he first tells the emissary or like the Vedic or like one of them that basically like this will like make it so Bajor can't join the Federation if they're like going back to a like discriminatory class system.
A caste system,
Yeah. But you can tell that that's something that like that's way more important to Sisko than it is to like any of the Bajorans.
Right.
Like to him, like because there's I think it's yeah I think it's when he's talking to Kira that she's like, well, this is like what our gods essentially like have told us to do, and he's like, is that more important than like joining the Federation? And it's like that's clearly like to him, like I think to some Starfleet people like the idea of the Federation is kind of almost like the closest proxy to like a religion that they have. Like it kind of
Right.
feels like it's taking on the same significance to him that like the will of the prophets is to the Bajorans, when like it's probably
Yeah.
not something they care that much about other than just as like a way to be protected from the Cardassians.
Yeah. Well, I love. Okay, so like it's such a well written episode because like all this stuff really intersects in really good ways, you know. But like it is important to him, and in some ways maybe it's more important. But like the other thing is that like he's sort of like, well, I didn't really want to be like the moral arbiter for these people, but
Right.
I actually do care about them, and like it's not just the Federation. It's like he does feel like some responsibility for them, and so he's like, well, if I just like, I'm like, well, it sounds good, then I'm going to leave them over to this guy who like obviously is going to lead them down a path that is like not a good path, you know. And so
Right.
like it's
Yeah.
sort of like this thing of like, well, I thought I had an out, and now it turns out I actually do care about this, and I can't allow myself to be selfish, to be selfish enough to just let this happen to these people, you know?
Yeah.
And that dovetails really well with the Kira stuff, because I remember like toward the beginning of this episode, I was like, oh, am I not going to like this? Because is it going to be like one of those like things that is in so much non-believer fiction, you know, for lack of a better word,
Mm-hmm.
of like, oh, like these people are noble because they believe in something, you know, because like,
Yeah.
but like where she's watching the new thing and she's clapping for the new emissary, and
Yeah.
Odo is like, well, I don't get why you're doing this. Like you were like all on board the
Yeah,
Sisko's
like
the
2
emissary
days ago
train.
you thought Sisko was the emissary. Yeah.
And she's like, she says something like faith is something that like if you don't understand it, you don't.
Yeah, it's like if you don't
If you
have
don't
it, you
have it,
can't
you'll never.
understand it.
The contradiction, and if you don't, and if you do have it, you don't need the explanation. And I was
Yeah.
like, that is the kind of like thing that like again a lot of these kinds of things like to say, and I think is kind of, and even like a lot of like people who have faith like to say it, and I think it's like kind of dumb, and it seems like just sort of a way of like explaining away something that
Yeah, that you don't have a good answer for it.
right. But then I think though that the show actually does sort of engage with that though, but because like
Yeah.
she kind of tries to live that idea out and kind of finds
Yeah.
like, oh, like
To the
I
extent that
am.
she in one scene like comes and like basically resigns. She's just like, I can't be like your second in command anymore. I have to
Yeah.
go be an artist. But is
And
really
it's
like sad about that.
and I think like, what like American Christian who is like, but who has grown up like, in a practicing house, like hasn't, or maybe this isn't true, but I think you will probably have a similar experience to what I'm about to say. Like, what one of those people like hasn't had an experience where like you're like, well, I don't want to do something, and I guess that probably means that like that's what God wants me to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
um, and so yeah, it's like it's really interesting.
Or like I
Like,
do or the opposite of like I do want to do something, but is that just me being like selfish
selfish,
and
right?
I
Yeah,
should be sacrificing that for like I'm you can yeah, that feeling of like I'm never sacrificing enough because I should be
right.
sacrificing everything.
Hmm.
If yeah.
And yeah, I think that it doesn't really let her off the hook, and like kind of at the end, she's like, "Oh well, the you're the real emissary anyway, so it all worked out." Like, but like
Right.
that's sort of, I think, like that's not really a cop out. I think on the show's part, it's sort of like narratively, like it's like that character kind of being like, "Okay, well, I've figured out a way for like these two things to exist in a way that doesn't have to be in conflict," but like that she's kind of like, phew, okay, I don't have to like examine my own
Yeah, but I did
beliefs
have
too
to.
hard, like, yeah, like which is really
I was
interesting.
getting close to. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
which is
it's
really
it is
really
a
cool.
very
Like a
yeah, I agree. And yeah, and I think it's also like cuz I think she also I don't know if it's in that same scene where she's resigning or a different scene, but there's another scene where she again like with a lot of like emotion is like telling Cisco like I don't think you realize basically how much power you had as the emissary, right? Like what these people
yeah,
would have done if you had just asked, like said, like asked them
yes,
to, or like said the prophets wanted them to. Like you essentially had the power to become like have absolute power over these people if you had wanted it.
yeah. It's really good stuff. It's yeah. I don't know. Was
But yeah, and so it all kind of culminates with uh the, with this Vedic guy like murders someone because they're essentially because they're like of a lower class than him, and so he like is just like, well, I
because
can
he
like, there's nothing wrong
well,
with
not
that.
only that, but it wasn't fully because like they were in a lower class. It was that they were, I believe, a another Vedic, and he was like, "You are from a lower class.
Oh, okay.
You need to stop being a Vedic, and go be whatever, a farmer or whatever." And and the guy's like, no, I don't think I will. And so he just kills him, like, and he's
Yeah,
like, yeah,
because
I'm
they like
allowed,
there's this
like,
dead body on the promenade, and Odo's just like, yeah, he must have been pushed by from the upper levels.
no, because it's even more than that, because he must have fallen from the other levels, and then like, and then Cisco's like, well, did anyone see what happened? Like, was he pushed? And then that guy's like, yeah, I did it. So it's like he could have even
Yeah, he's
like
like, yeah,
gotten away with it, and he's like, well, no, I don't. What am I getting away
yeah,
with? Like, it's like I'm allowed to do this,
I
like,
pushed him. Yeah.
yeah,
And so yeah, and so that's the point that Cisco is just like, this has to stop. Like that the only way he can do that is by taking back over as the emissary. So then they're like him and the new emissary guy are just like, well, we have to go. We'll just go talk to the prophets and see what they want. So they fly a shuttle into the wormhole, and
the brothers are kind of like, why are you what leave us alone, almost as like like
yeah, they're
what are you
just like,
bothering
this
us
is
for?
none of this is our problem. Yeah, they're mostly just kind of, which I think is like a lot of the prophets are just kind of like confused. um, but yeah, because they're just like, Cisco's like, well, like, is he the emissary because he got there first? And they're just like, we don't understand first. Like,
Yeah,
because the kind of whole thing with these aliens is because they live in a wormhole, time isn't like linear for them. So they're like, basically what they kind of say is like, Cisco has always been like the emissary. Like, he is the one that is like meant to be like for Bejor. And then
yeah,
like, also this guy, like, we healed him because he was hurt, and then we sent him back, but like not with any intention of like him being the emissary or anything like that. And
Yeah.
they were like, we don't really care about any of this caste system stuff. Like that's that's not one. None of that was our intention, really, one way or the other.
Yeah. Seems like a you problem. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they essentially they send this guy back to his original time, which he's kind of like happy about. He's just like, oh, I get to see my family again and finish my poetry.
It is it because he's like, why did you do this? And he's like, why did you do this? And like, we just did it. Like, do you want to? Because at first they're sort of
Yeah,
like, do you want us to kill him? They are like,
right.
should we kill him? And this was like, no. What if he just sent him back? Like,
Right. They're like, I guess, okay.
yeah,
Yeah, and so Sisko goes back to being the emissary, but with kind of like a new sort of appreciation, or like, there's another little scene where he does some kind of ceremonial like blessing, but he's more like kind of happy about it, or just kind of like understands more how important it is to these people, and how like
and
it's
how he has a
more important to him
responsibility.
also. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a very. I'm not trying to sound like too like kids these days or anything like that, but like it is kind of an odd, I guess, like counterpoint to the kind of like self care. Not that I think self care is important, and I think that like sometimes you do have to be like, well, I can't like regulate other people's emotions or whatever, but it is interesting to see something like that in a show now where it's just sort of like you're getting and like Star Trek has always had like a social responsibility, social contract kind of like element of it, but like just to like see someone be like, you do have a responsibility to like to people, even if they're sort of rejecting your the responsibility that you would have. You know what I mean? Like it's an interesting like thing to see like play out, where it's sort of like he's like, look, like like they're all kind of giving me the out of that I don't have to worry about this, but I am still worried about it, and like even if they don't think I should be, like I probably should be. Like I don't know. I liked it, but it's like it doesn't feel like paternalistic. It just sort of feels like the right thing to do here is to, it's funny because like even though like Kira kind of like ends up having it be sort of the opposite thing, where she's like, okay, well, this thing that I thought was by God's will, turns out it doesn't have to be like this. And he's like, well, this thing that I was really hoping wasn't God's will is actually,
Right.
but still, it's like, it's in a way where it's like, it's not really about it being God's will. It's about him being like, I need to like consider this, myself,
Yeah, this is my responsibility whether I want it or not. Yeah. Yeah, because I think there's also a little bit of that element of like one of those things where like even the decision to do nothing is still a decision and still like has consequences, right? Like
Right.
even like giving up the responsibility is you making a choice that has an outcome that you are responsible for, right? And so
Right,
like
exactly.
kind of feeling that. So yeah,
Mm-hmm,
it's I think yeah, particularly like it's a good Sisko episode, a good Kira episode, for sure. And
yeah,
yeah,
really a good one.
yeah,
And then I guess we could.
yeah, we never really wrapped up the O'Brien and Bashir stuff.
Yeah, there's also a bunch of stuff with Bashir and O'Brien, and again, as I was saying before, like a little immature in some ways, but like also very sweet, I think, at the same time, where it's like
Yeah,
these two guys who like, yeah, who don't quite know how to talk about their emotions, but like,
yeah, it is that very like kind of I guess timeless thing of like men not being able to just like come out and say to each other that like they want to be friends, and we're just like
men will make elaborate hollow sweet things about the Battle of Britain before going to therapy,
right. So, but yeah, and so
Um,
then and then eventually like their like partners want some peace and quiet, and not to be their only outlet, so they are just like will arrange for them to go have play dates with other men instead.
I don't even know if that's what my takeaway is from that, because that was one of the things I liked about that part of it, is that I think that like unfortunately this show often on purpose or otherwise like kind of casts Keiko as like a huge kind of killjoy shrew, and
Yeah.
not to the show's
Yeah.
benefit. And I think that I really like that final scene because like it does just seem like Keiko is like, my husband is lonely and he needs someone to give him permission to,
Yeah, to go like have fun with his friend.
yeah, because he knows
Yeah.
that because he's trying to be responsible and like be a good husband and stuff. And I'm what is a way of to get kind of to trick him into doing that? And it's like a very sweet thing to do, but then also like
Yeah.
I love like both of them, but especially when she calls Bashir at the end and she's like, Miles is really depressed, and like the look on
He's so happy.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say, he's like, oh, or he's sort of like he can barely contain like his excitement that his friend misses him. It's like it's very
Yeah.
cute, and it's very, I don't know, it is like there is something very kind of like sweet sort of like male friendship about it that I liked a lot. So
Yeah.
you know, it's one of those things where it's like I try not to put myself in those situations. Like I try to be very like upfront about like telling my friends that I love them and stuff. But like I get it, you know. It's like I understand those feelings, you know, in their own way. So I liked that stuff a lot too, even though it's in kind of like a lesser part of the episode, perhaps. But good.
Yeah, and it's one of those that, it is one of those episodes where like there's kind of two separate episodes that have nothing to do with each other, but yeah, I think that one is also good.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, thank you everybody for listening. We will be back in a couple weeks with Year of Hell Part 1, which is Star Trek Voyager Season 4, Episode 8. And we'll be back in a couple Sundays with that. In the meantime, you can check out the other show on the Kaleidoscope Media Podcast, which is Here's Johnny, which is a horror media podcast. Or you can check out the defunct That's Not a Science Works podcast, which is a science pop culture podcast. You can also follow us on Blue Sky at Contreks. You can email us out at contreks@gmail.com. You can visit our website at roncontreks.podbean.com, or you can follow us on YouTube at Out of Contreks. Contreks is spelled Contreks. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
thanks everyone. Bye.